Hello, welcome to another episode of Coach Krisler's Combos. Today, I am here with a super fun guest. I'm so excited for you to meet her. Before we do, though, just to let you know, if you are new to Coach Krisler's Combos, basically, this is just a time to have a conversation with somebody who has used functional medicine in their health journey. So sit back, relax. Jasmine's got a great story to share with you today. So, hi, Jasmine. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, excited to be here. Thank you so much for giving me a platform to share my story. I'm excited to talk with you.
You are so welcome. So, Jasmine and I actually both are part of the alumni from the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. So, that's how we met. So, Jasmine, tell everybody, before we talk about your health journey, tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Jasmine Parker. I'm from Minnesota, but I just recently moved to Arizona this year, so that's exciting.
Big change.
And then I wear a lot of hats. Primarily, I am a registered nurse. I've been working as an IMC nurse in the hospital system, which is a step down ICU. And then right now I am transitioning to a new venture as a full-time functional medicine certified health coach and new owner of Rooting for Health, otherwise known as Jasmine Parker Coaching.
Awesome. Wow. So that's a lot of change going on.
Yeah.
Big move from Minnesota to Arizona. So
yeah.
about that.
It's warmer here.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Anyone in the Midwest knows.
Yeah, that is a big change. Well, I totally understand the heat because I live in Texas. So,
the humidity is real down there.
It sure is. So, I'd love to hear about why you're transitioning from nursing, but obviously probably using all of what you learned into functional medicine health coaching.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with nursing and having, studied with a traditional sense of medical background, I had to go through my own health journey in order to find functional medicine. So functional medicine, even though it has medicine in the word, wasn't something I was aware of when I studied medicine in general. And even in the nursing field or medical world, it was nothing I had heard of in years. Didn't even know it existed, to be honest with you. And then I had my own health crisis, and that led me to functional medicine, in which I am kind of a forever student. I love learning. It gets me excited every day. And so having discovered this new realm, I was like, okay, what is this? How does this work? What do I need to do? And it's basically root cause healing. For those of you who don't know, it treats the body as a whole. It doesn't separate heart from lungs, from brain, from gut. Everything is connected. And if one thing is down, it's impacting other things. They're not separated. And in a traditional sense, when something is going on with any of those individual organs, there's normally a specialist for that. And so I have had my fair share of going to different specialists for different parts of the body until I found a functional medicine doctor who kind of brought it back in and treated everything together as the system that it is.
Yeah, that is awesome. And that's so many of us have that same type of journey. It may not necessarily be the same issue that we experience, or maybe the same diagnosis that we all have, but we all have that kind of aha moment of, oh, wow, this exists. Okay, this makes so much more sense. Let me head down that path. And once we start learning about it, you mentioned your love of learning. I'm the same way. It's like once I start learning about it, I want to know more. I want to know more.
Yeah.
Let me ask all the questions. Let me read all the books. Let me listen to all the podcasts, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your health crisis that you mentioned. So what were some of the things that you were noticing that were off for you?
Yeah. So for me, my health crisis started with one too many concussions.
Mm,
So I had a concussion. I honestly didn't think that I hit my head that hard. I had pushed through the next couple days of working my long 12-hour shifts. And then all of a sudden, there was just this emotional storm. There was anxiety and panic attacks and irritability and anger. And I had the worst trouble with sounds and light. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't remember things.
mm,
And that sparked me to go to the doctor, of course. And
mhm,
as I suspected, post concussion syndrome. Okay, let's work on that. Let's heal that. But it got to a point where it wasn't healing. It was
mm,
not getting better. And so that's when the specialist feeds started to happen, right? So my migraines weren't getting any better. They were debilitating. So I was referred to a neurologist.
mhm.
And that was a very interesting experience in and of itself. If you've never had 6 steroid injections to your head, I promise you don't want them. They're very
Wow.
painful. It also did not help me. It was more traumatizing than anything. It was there that I was put on 4 to 5 different medications right away. And then when those were not working, whether the dosage was being switched or the medicine was being switched, everything was getting worse since I started seeing them
Mhm,
and not better, to the
mhm.
point that it ended me up in the ER with the worst migraine of my life. And the ER doctor was like, "Well, my dear, you're on too many medications." And I'm like, "Great. This is what they
Thanks.
prescribed me." So it
Yeah.
started with that. And I did that journey with the neurologist for about a month's time. And then I started noticing other symptoms starting to appear.
Mm,
I have rosacea in general. So rosacea is just a reddening to your face, but it was getting really bad that it was spreading down my neck into my shoulders. It was out of control. And my resting heart rate was 150 all of a sudden. Anything I did
wow.
was 180, very concerning. So I went to my doctor with the skin issues, ended up at a dermatologist, given another medicine. Good luck. Then I ended up with a heart monitor. And when it wasn't named a dangerous rhythm, they're like, "Hey, here's the medication for that." And I'm just like, at this point,
Wow.
pre-concussion, I had never been on any medications. And
Mm,
now I'm on 10 different medications and I'm in my early 20s at this point.
wow.
So a little too much for me. And my doctor at that point was just like, "Well, here you go." And I'm not one that likes medication. If I have to do anything, it's got to be as needed because I don't want anything scheduled. I'm too young
Mm,
to even, in my opinion, to even have a list of medications that I'm on.
for sure.
And so I had spoken with a close friend, and she had mentioned a functional medicine practitioner in the area. And for me, I was kind of like, I don't know what that is. And nobody else is helping. Why is this person going to help, honestly? But when you feel
Yeah.
so freaking terrible, you're bound to try just one last thing, just one
Mm,
last thing. And
mhm.
so I went to the functional medicine doctor, and honestly, it was the best experience I've ever had with
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
They spent in-depth time with me, truly supporting me, giving me the time to talk, giving me the time to list my, at that point, page of symptoms. And I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
what's happening. This is probably going to be a really hard case for you. Nobody else can help me.
Mhm.
And at the end of that first session, he was like, "Well, my dear, all of these sound like a thyroid issue." And I was like, "What?" Just amazed that he had an answer
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
I was so shocked, so grateful, but all I could do was sit there and laugh at how many doctors I had seen, yet no one said, "Hey, I think you have a thyroid issue." And
Mm,
at that point, I wanted it tested.
Yeah.
And I went to my primary doctor and she was like, no, your last one was normal. We don't need to do that. And I had to fight with her. And there are so many patients that would just be like, okay, okay. But
Right.
me having been a nurse and having to advocate for my patients all of the time when they have a concern that's really bothersome to them, I was like, no, we're going to do this. This is what I want to do. Something is not right. And she eventually ran it for me. And of course, it came back ridiculously high. I was showing an autoimmune process. And for thyroid hypothyroidism, it was Hashimoto's. So
Mm-hmm.
just,
So, gosh, there's so much there. I want to back up a little bit and talk about, your head injury, and how, you mentioned you didn't really think it was that bad. And yet at the end of your shift, it was all of these feelings were coming up and emotions, and you're feeling irrational, and, the brain fog and all of these different things. So how was it something that happened during that time frame, and then towards the end of your shift, or how closely in terms of time was your head injury to when you started to feel all of these things?
yeah. So I hit my head so I worked night shift at the time, so 12 hours. And nursing is very mentally exhausting work. A lot of critical thinking, a lot of brain cells go into it every day. So using all that brain power, I went through 2 night shifts after I had hit my head. And then by the 3rd day during the daytime, I had woken, we sleep during the day. So I'd woken up closer to the evening. And that's when things just didn't seem to be right. I felt like I was in a different world. I felt like I was hysterically laughing, but also knew that that wasn't normal to be laughing like that. And I was like, something's not right. And it kind of hit me when my partner at the time was like, are you okay? And I'm like, I think so, but I don't think so at the same time. Something is wrong. And we kind of waited it out. And that's when everything started to kind of come through. And I was like, oh, okay, we should probably go in.
Right. I'm interested to know if when you began being looked at, if anyone asked you questions about your work situation. Like, did they ask you about when you work during the day, if you work day shift, night shift, anything like that?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah. I was wondering that because night shift workers certainly have additional stressors because of when they work. And so I was curious because you and I both know that in functional medicine, there's a lot of different mediators that we experience along the way, or maybe a part of our experience. And then we have something that then is our trigger, right? So maybe the head injury was the trigger of multiple mediators that you had experienced. And one of those mediators certainly could have been that you were a night shift worker.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Very interesting. So after you had gone through this experience, and you get to the ER, now you've gone through this, you realized, and they've given you medications upon medications, and you get to the ER, and this doctor says to you, you're on it's too many medications. What was their follow-up to that? Did they provide any additional information or advice?
Nothing. Just you're taking too many medications for your headaches, that at this point you're getting rebound headaches, and that was kind of it.
Right. So there was an explanation of why the headaches were coming and continuously coming, but not necessarily a solution provided.
Right.
or further advice. Or, yeah,
Absolutely.
and that certainly must have been frustrating.
Very, very. I'm like, okay, well, I get it. I'm on too many,
Right.
but that's not what the specialist is saying. And now we're
Mm,
having two conflicting views here. And then
mhm,
as the patient, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to figure out what I'm supposed to take, what I'm not supposed to take,
mhm.
what's too many, what's not too many? We put all of our trust in these providers, and it's hard as the patient when then you get conflicting answers like this from both two different physicians.
Right, right. Let me ask you this. When you were with the dermatologist, were
Mhm.
you referred to the dermatologist by your general practitioner?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So now you're at this person who is a skin specialist, we'll
Mhm.
say, um, who again is not necessarily looking at the other things that are going on, but is addressing your skin with another medication.
Correct.
Uh-huh. So when you were with your general practitioner, after hearing, yeah, you know what, this is your thyroid, we need to address this.
Mhm.
Um, and you requested your thyroid to be tested. What exactly did they test? Did your general practitioner test your TSH, your free T3, T4, all of that, or what was it that they tested?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because what a lot of people don't know are there are actually 9 markers to test for your thyroid. For me, she tested a TSH, which is a pretty standard lab that a lot of physicians run.
Mhm,
A T3, a T4, and then my TPO, which is the antibodies,
mhm.
that tells you about autoimmunity.
Okay. And so was it the antibody number that came back with the high numbers, or was it everything? What
It
what
was
was it showing?
actually, so my TSH for most of my life when I've had it drawn has been within normal limits,
Mhm.
at 1, and it was escalated to about 25. And then
Wow.
my TPO antibodies were also high as well.
Mhm,
So both my
mhm.
TSH took a turn, and then my TPO antibodies were high as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's really good information for people to understand, is that typically, the normal kind of panels that are run yearly, let's say, only look at TSH, which certainly is a marker,
Mhm.
but it doesn't necessarily tell the entire story. And
Correct.
even when you are within normal range, the question becomes, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Because normal in the US is not healthy, right?
Correct.
So it's like, I don't want to be normal.
Yep.
What's optimal? Like, what's the
Yes.
best possible
I
scenario?
think
Let's
that
talk
is a
about
great
that.
way to say it, is what is optimal.
Hmm.
Um, TSH is a marker. It is. It is a standard marker, but again, it only shows a very fraction of your whole thyroid picture.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, what I have come to learn is that your TSH can be normal and your antibodies can actually be high. So
Hmm.
just because the one marker is normal does not tell you the entire picture of your thyroid altogether.
Right, right. Well, good for you for advocating for yourself, for saying, no, this is not acceptable. Something's wrong. I really want to have these tests run, because, having that information is very beneficial.
Yes, absolutely. It can make a huge difference because once we got my results back, of course, there was like, all right, well, this is what it is. Here's the medication for it. And for me, again, at that point, I was like, nope, I'm not taking any more medication at
Yeah.
all. And that's when I started my functional medicine healing journey. And I don't have to take any meds.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So what was something that you began doing? Where did you start with, what you changed, what you added, what you took out? Like, where was your starting point?
Yeah. So we did a lot of testing up front when I worked with my functional medicine practitioner. If you've never worked with one before, they do a lot of in-depth paperwork. And I'm talking about questions you probably have never been asked before if you've ever gone to the doctor, but a lot of in-depth to help them get the picture of your entire life and not
Mhm,
just what's happening right now, but they want to know everything from the
mhm,
time you were a baby until now. We did a lot of testing, and then we did supplementation as well. And along with the supplementation, that was mainly to eradicate the bad in the body. And then
mhm,
we did a heal and seal for the gut. And part of that heal and seal involved me doing an elimination diet. And if you've never done one before, it is pretty much eliminating the major allergy foods,
mhm.
but it gets you down to bare minimum whole foods. And even then, it depends on the whole food that you eat too. So
Right.
it's a very complex thing to do, but feeling so terrible, I was like, I don't care. Let's do this. So I dove right into that. I didn't wean up to anything. I just took everything out, like it said. I did that for about 2 months. And then you have to wean the food back on slowly as well, the different
Mhm,
categories.
mhm,
So that took me probably a month or two as well. I have primarily stayed away from gluten to this day. Gluten and your thyroid are not very friendly. And then also with my leaky gut, gluten is not a very friendly thing for that
mhm,
either. So
mhm,
I just cut it out altogether. And I also mainly eat a lot of whole foods, and then I stick to a lot of dairy-free things as well. So those
mhm,
are mainly what I did when I started working with them, and then still do today.
mhm, mhm. And so, in terms of what changes you began to notice, what sorts of things were changing for you as you were going through this elimination reintroduction process, and healing your gut and things like that?
It really made me more aware of how my body reacts to certain foods. So
Mm,
gluten for the longest time, I realized was causing my rosacea to flare so badly down my neck and my shoulders. And again, that was partly due to the root cause, which was, my leaky gut at that point.
mhm,
Um, so taking or taking away gluten helped a ton with my
mhm,
skin altogether. Healing and sealing my gut and really helped bring my thyroid numbers back down. So my Hashimoto's is in remission to this day. And I don't have any more migraines. I don't have to take any neurological medications whatsoever. Besides the skin and thyroid that I talked about, the other ones were my mind, my mental state is clearer, more
mhm,
focused.
mhm,
I now that I know my thyroid is the issue, I'm very mindful of my own limitations, and that
mhm.
comes with like exercising too, because you can lose a lot of energy sometimes. So really just more awareness and then much improvement with the symptoms. So I'm not suffering anymore.
Mm, mhm. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about self-awareness. Um, Once you know what your triggers are, once you know what things are connected to your headaches or your night sweats or your brain fog or whatever it is, it's like to stay away from those things or limit those things, and how to manage your day a little
Yeah.
bit better. It's really interesting. Um, I am in the perimenopausal state. And one of the things that I started noticing, probably a couple of years ago now was, if I have wine, in the evening, especially, that I just don't sleep as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't put two and two together at the time. But again, the more I learned, the more I listened to, certain women talk about their experiences and listen to podcasts like Dr. Carrie Jones and, all these other people who are hormone experts and know this stuff. I started thinking, yeah, this sounds like me. And once I started making that flip to, if I do have a glass of wine, having it earlier in the day and limiting, having a much smaller amount and, just different things. Once I
Yes.
became aware of that, I knew what I needed to do and what changes I need to make. And now I sleep so much better, right? So it's that awareness that we have of not just the issue, but how to adjust, what
Yes.
changes we need to make, what we need to implement, what we need to cut out. It's huge. And I think as a health coach, you understand that we can help people with those adjustments, right?
Yes.
When you go through an elimination reintroduction process, it can be really overwhelming.
Yes.
But that's why having, support through coaching can be invaluable, because it can help walk you through that process and have somebody to ask questions and process what's going on and, kind of think through, how do I make these adjustments in a meaningful way that's not going to, overwhelm me and all of those things.
Absolutely. 100%. It's being aware is the biggest thing, but it's also the first step, right? A lot of us could go somewhere to the doctor or just be like, I have a headache, I don't feel good. But we never say,
Mhm.
well, why do I have a headache? Why don't I feel good? What did I eat recently? What did I do recently? And
Mhm.
we don't follow those connections. We're just like, well, I have a headache, here's some medication, let's keep moving forward. And we don't ever go backwards and say, well, why did that happen? What did I eat? What did I do yesterday? How did I sleep? All of those
Mhm.
things matter. And as health coaches, we get to help people with lifestyle changes. And so we're aware of those things. And because we have awareness that helps us with our clients and the
Mhm.
journey that they're on, and to help them and make, changes to be aware themselves moving forward.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So, how would you say that your experience as a nurse has impacted your coaching?
So, as a nurse, we have a lot of education, right? And we have our own experience and we go through clinicals. And so the educational pieces ties in with my health coaching, but also the essence of a nurse, and that is helping people.
Mhm.
All we want to do is fix people, right? That's just at our core. And it can get a little frustrating when you know something, but you can't share something because
Mm.
there are certain boundaries, there are certain lines, when you're at work, that it's just not the time and place. Um, so wanting to help people in a different capacity,
Mhm.
to give them a listening ear, the support that they need and deserve, is top priority for me. And so that's why I started Rooting for Health, which is my own
Mhm.
coaching company, in order to give people the time, the space, the support that they need to make the lifestyle changes that are necessary in order for them to feel better. And as having a toe in traditional medicine and also functional medicine, traditional medicine has its time and space as well for what is needed and what is not needed. There is a time and place for medicine. There is a time and place for emergency care, all necessary, all things that are needed, but time and place. And when it comes to our
Mhm.
chronic issues, we get a lot of those readmitted to the hospital. And so with the chronic issues, it's like, what are we doing? We're not making the necessary changes, the lifestyle changes that are needed, because in traditional medicine, there's just not enough support
Mhm.
for lifestyle changes. We say, hey, go change your diet. Hey, you need to exercise. And then as a patient, we go home and we're like, well, I don't really feel motivated to do that, so
Right.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
And then
even
nothing
what
changes.
does that mean? What does that look like for me? Exercising. Um,
Correct.
that
Hmm.
could be all kinds of things. It could be riding a
Yeah.
bike, it could be swimming, it could be, going to group classes, it could be working out at home. I mean,
Yeah.
there's such a wide variety of things that people do. I mean, one of the things that I recently picked up was hula hooping.
Awesome.
It's a form of exercise, but these are not
Yeah.
necessarily things that your doctor is going to suggest,
Mhm.
but it's something. People love to dance. That's a form of exercise. Get out there
Yes.
and boogie, right? But
Yes.
I think when you talk about, having that additional piece of not just getting the prescription of modify this,
Mhm.
right? But how does that look for you in your everyday life, in your busyness, in your go, go, go hustle, day to day?
Yes.
How am I actually going to implement this? And so you having that traditional training and the understanding of the nutritional pieces and all of different things, but now having this additional understanding of how to actually help people implement those things,
Yes.
very beneficial.
Yes. A lot of times, as the bedside nurse, people come in and they're at their sickest. They don't feel
Mm,
good. There's no point in talking to them about stuff that they need to change because that's not their priority right now, right?
mm,
And then we get them better, give them their antibiotics, whatever is needed at that time. And then you send them on their way, and that's all we ever see. We just see a snapshot of time for them. And then there are some people that end up coming back, and we call them frequent flyers, and you're like, okay, but something needs to change.
right.
Again, there's a line there, so you can't cross that line and start talking to them about certain things. So that's why I wanted to create a space for me to be able to do that, to help people meet them where they're at in their life, whatever point that is, and help them implement the changes that are going to be easiest to them in their life,
Mhm.
and not find something, ridiculous like, hey, you need to run 5 miles now. And it's like, I've never done that. I'm not going to do that. Let's
Right.
find something else that gives me the same benefit.
Right.
So you have to spend time and support
Mhm.
people. And you can't do that in certain settings. It's very challenging because you don't have that time,
Mhm.
especially as a nurse. You are running around like a crazy person with like five task lists for five different patients, and
Right.
then your own task list. So there's just not time to be able to give the patients, what they need when it comes to, discharge time of, hey, lifestyle. That includes stress, that includes nutrition, that includes exercise, that includes a lot of things. And a lot
Mhm.
of us don't get those conversations, and we struggle to find support for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Amen to all of that. Um, well, I'm curious now, how long has it been from the time that you had that head injury until today? What's the time span? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I had my concussion in November of 2020.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you've been on a good little journey. And I love, not that you had the concussion, but that that you've got some time in between then and now, because I think it's another reminder that things can change, but they do take time,
Yes.
and there is a process to the change, right? It's not
Correct.
something that you just wake up tomorrow and you're like, oh, everything's better, right? I cut out gluten and I just feel great tomorrow,
Exactly.
so yeah, so it's a little bit of a process, because even in when you are talking about the elimination reintroduction process, you mentioned that you eliminated for what, 2 months, and then
Mhm.
slowly added back the things, and were very conscious of monitoring how those things were making you feel. So I think that's really important for people to remember, is that, for some people, if they do cut out gluten, they immediately feel better.
Yeah.
Um, but for some people, it does take a little bit of time, because all of our bodies are in different places in terms of our past, what we've done, what we've experienced, and what we need to go through in order to make those positive changes.
100%, absolutely. When you are making lifestyle changes, it's not a quick fix, and I know that that's what we all want. We all want it, and I wish it was the answer, but it just isn't, because when it comes to root causes, what's happening is, it's taking time and time for bad things to build up until a trigger happens and sets us off on this cascade. Like, myself, I hit a trigger point and everything just kind of fell into an autoimmune disease, things I'm not expecting to happen. But your entire health journey from the moment you're born until now sets you up for that. And when you hit a trigger and then it cascades, again, it takes time to heal, just as it took time to build up that disease in the first place. It just didn't come out of nowhere. And sometimes we think that it comes out of nowhere, but it really doesn't come out of nowhere. And so the answer is not, hey, take this, hey, take that, just do this one thing, I'm better. It's really reevaluating your life at that point and every aspect of it. Spiritual, your sleep, your stress, your nutrition, your exercise, all of it matters, and all of it impacts your health and will continue to impact your health. And it takes time and it takes consistency. And you're 100% going to fail at some point because it's inevitable. But that's okay. And it's expected. And you just get right back up and you do it again. But it's that consistency of getting back up and doing it again that eventually you'll start to change your habits and behaviors around those things, and you'll feel a lot better. But again, it takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, one of the beautiful things about functional medicine is that they do look at all the things, right? If something's not quite working, if something's not right, they're going to investigate. They're going to ask the questions. They're going to run the labs. They're going to do the physical exam, all of those different things. And your functional medicine doctor, whoever your practitioner is, whether it's a nurse practitioner, PA, your health coach, they are along for the ride. Like, they're there to 100% support you. So that's a really cool thing about this approach to healthcare. So I just want to say this has been an awesome conversation. So much fun. Thank you for sharing all the things. And I'm sure there's somebody out there who's listening that's like, that's me, or I have more questions. So where can they ask their questions, or maybe where can they follow you on social media?
So you can follow me and DM me on Instagram at Jasmine Parker Coaching. Otherwise, you can go to my website, which is jasmineparkercoaching.com. I primarily specialize in thyroid and gut health with busy, tired professionals who want to improve their energy and focus. So anything you need, just ask.
All right. Well, I will make sure to put your information in the description of this episode as well. So if people want to look you up, then they will be able to find you easily. Again, thank you so much for being with me today. Such a fun conversation, lots of great information that you shared. So I know people are going to take away some good nuggets from this conversation.
I hope so. Knowledge is power. So everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely. And so for those of you that have joined us today, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for watching the convo. Make sure you like this episode and share it with your friends who maybe have had similar issues. Don't forget to subscribe as well so you don't miss any of the combos. And until next time, I'll see ya. Bye.